Hey everybody, welcome to the Real Hickory podcast today. Today we have a great guest. Her name is Ryan Lovern, and she is with Commercial First Real Estate, a commercial real estate firm in our area. And she's going to come on and talk to us about the state of commercial real estate in our area. It's a really good conversation. I think you guys will really like it. And we go over quite a bit of information. If you remember, I had her on once before. This will be the first time we do it with a video component. So kind of gotten some good feedback on this. So we'll probably keep doing this going forward. But I think you'll really like what she has to say. A lot of really good information. And I learned a lot by talking to her. So without further delay, let's get started and welcome to the show, Ryan Lovern. So Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, very happy to be here. Thank you, Mike.
So we're going to just kind of jump right on in here and wanted to just kind of talk about a little bit about commercial real estate with you. And what is the area of commercial real estate that seems to have the highest demand right now?
Well, I can tell you what doesn't have demand, and that's land. Right now, the big demand is buildings. Land is sitting still for the most part in a general category. And I'll touch on that in a minute, with the exception of retail land. Industrial, there's no supply. We've got construction costs that are making the price of building easily double of what you can get. That's on the market today, but you pay for what you get. So that's great that you got a building for $450,000, but now you have to put $800 into it to get it what it needs to be. And hopefully that came with a new roof, new HVAC, new parking lots, things of that nature. So after it's all said and done, if the building's in relatively good shape and you compare it to building the same exact building on a different piece of land, not including site cost, you're easily double. So there is still a big difference between what it costs to build an industrial building and really anything in the commercial market. Office, that's a wait and see. Immediately, the work from home environment is changing our landscape, but I do believe that's temporary. In some businesses, in manufacturing, obviously that has changed a lot. So you can't work from home in a job when you have admin responsibilities or you're making things, anything that's hands-on or collaborative. I mean, we've come so far in learning how to do that from, I guess, afar. But some folks, analysts are saying, well, now these buildings, these office buildings, we're going to have to spread out and we have to bring our people back, but we need more room. And then other people are saying, well, why bring all those jobs back into the workplace? Retail has been average. Their new out parcel sales have been good in our MSA, our 4-county MSA. It's been pretty strong. But what's been interesting to me is there's been a lot of entrepreneurs that have either had their own business or worked for themselves with maybe a side business or the goal to do something different. And either they found more time with their job or their job was impacted. And so it's pushed them to start their new business or allow their side business to become their main one. So like, take, for example, we've got a hairdresser that sold her business and has gone out of it and has started a boutique. Same with a real estate agent that's now really working hard on home renovations. So that part's been interesting.
So are there any big projects that are on the radar that maybe people don't know about that are going on locally?
One that's
I know sometimes you can't talk about this stuff, but the stuff you can
Right. Well, I'll tell you the fun part, there's a lot going on downtown that I cannot go into. I mean, obviously everybody's aware of the One North Center project with the 5 stories of apartments with commercial retail on the main. That the leasing of that has gone extremely well. We've been happy with that. There's other projects coming that are not on the radar.
All right. So what about, there's a lot of improvements. There's a lot of improvements from a DOT standpoint that are going on around town. And a lot of them are affiliated with the City Walk and the River Walk project, the Hickory Trail project that we've kind of talked about in the past. And those seem to be going really well. And, anybody that's been in town lately, I mean, you can just see, I know the area in front of our office now is, functional. There's people riding and biking on it now. It's kind of exciting. I don't know if people realize it's even open yet, but it's really looking good, and pretty exciting to see like that's going to go through the, all the way through town.
Yes.
And so that part's going well, but my understanding is there's some other projects that are going on that were going to be, big outside projects like 321 and stuff. Apparently there's a hold that's been put on those. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yes, DOT had some misallocation of funds to the tune of a lot of $1 million. I think 450 is the actual number I heard. Right or wrong, I can't speak to that. I'm sure somewhere it says it specifically. But with that being said, that's put the project on hold. If you, from McDonald Parkway, the exit off of 40 at McDonald Parkway, you have that great streetscape, good, thoroughfare, I guess I would call it, from 40 to 127. But once you get to that Springs Road interchange with Walmart Neighborhood Market and McDonald's and Walgreens, it funnels back down to 2 lanes. And that was supposed to continue on, I think it's 5 lanes all the way to 127. And that has been pushed out probably to at least 2024, if not 2026. The big one is Highway 321 with the plans to make that a super street. So even the lights that are going to stay, there's going to be a median that separates the north and southbound traffic. The goal is to get people through Hickory as fast as possible. So what happens is, to the fast food guy, to the gas guy, to the emergency vet, anybody that you need to get to quickly now, to have to go do a U-turn to get back if you're not going the right way, it causes a big problem. And so that is going to change. It does not lend itself to retail commercial development in the future. The bad thing about that is all the folks that are already there, they're just kind of playing, I guess they're shaking their 8 ball trying to figure out what's going to happen. What I continue to hear is the interchange at Clement Boulevard, and then the other side would actually feed into Old Lenore Road. That's going to be one of the main feeders, and the other is going to be Highway 70 back to where the leaves are, where you get off onto Highway 70. So there's some businesses that won't be hurt if the stoplight remains fully functional. But then there's others that, it's just, you're not going to have the access that you used to have. And so I think you're going to see a lot of real estate changing, with retail commercial moving away from 321 and moving up to 70 or along Old Lenore Road.
Okay. Well, and things have changed over time, all the time, I guess. So, but it's got to be frustrating for the people that are there, though, that thought that they were going to be leaving, and then all of a sudden they're going to be there for a while more. Has that affected a lot of those businesses? Like, how close were they to actually getting this done?
Yeah, it's a problem because you have landlords that have not renewed leases, and they're month to month with everyone in their building. They may have 6 or 7 tenants, and they've got potholes in the parking lot, and they don't want to spend the capital expenditures, which then makes the tenants frustrated. And so they want to move. But at the same time, and I'm, DOT, it is what it is. But if they keep kicking the can down the road, the landlords and the owners either have to make a decision, or they just stay. And by not making a decision with their tenants moving out, they will be forced to making a decision. Yeah. So, it's just, it holds the owners hostage. They're the ones that really lose. The sellers lose. And I do think, like, the Corning building is a huge project that is now under contract. I don't know what the end result's going to be on the use, but it is under contract.
Interesting.
Yep. So I guess the question is, you've got a lot of office space. Will that property be demolished? Or will it stay? Will they use the out parcels along the way? And is it worth the money to do that? I don't know. I can't answer that question.
I mean, it seems like to me, outside looking in, the future value along that corridor is going to be on the side streets leading off of that. So, like, as of now, you want to be, or you would think you'd want to be right on 321 so people can get to you. But now with all these extra side streets and stuff, we really need, it's all the feeder streets that are off of that are going to be the ones that'll benefit from it, it seems.
Yes, and I think it's
there's going to be a lot of
either,
development from there.
this is a total Hickory comment for me to make, but it's either 14th or 17th Street, not sure which one, but
Nice.
it will connect the Longview western side from Airport, Crawdad, all those, all the way over to 70. So you
Okay.
won't have to get on 321 to get to 70 on that side of town. So that is going to be a big plus, but it'll help from an industry standpoint. I don't see it, it won't do anything for retail commercial though.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll just kind of have to hold out and hope that you may have said it before and I missed it, but what are they saying now for 321 from a timeline standpoint? Like, did they give a future date for that?
I've heard 2024. They're already in right-of-way acquisition when they put the hold
Okay.
on it. So because they are where they are in that project, it will be easy for them to pick up and continue on in the terms of DOT projects. When I say easy, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, they have to deal with all those individual landowners and they have to agree on value. And then they have to decide if it's going to be purchased or if they're going to get it through eminent domain. So it will be the easy one to pick up on. It is a high priority, the way I understand, not just for Hickory, but for the state to get that project approved because of the time it's going to increase if you're traveling from Charlotte to the Blowing Rock Boone area. And that's the main goal, is to just keep moving that traffic through. So right now I'm hearing 2024. I've heard as late as 2026, but I also think there's a chance once they get into it that it could be moved back a little bit.
Okay. Well, that's good. I just hate for all the people that are tied to that to be stuck in limbo like that. That's just
Right.
just not a great place to be when you're in business and you're trying to plan things.
Not at all. Not at all. Hey, with risk comes reward. And unfortunately, that's part of commercial real estate. I mean, you just get DOT, things can really affect value.
It's definitely a long game. I mean, you kind of, a lot of times, some of the biggest, wins in residential or commercial real estate are just, come to the people that wait. And like you said, that's just how it goes sometimes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in our market, I don't want to say, like, COVID has definitely changed the landscape of a lot of businesses in our area, and how we've been affected. I don't feel like we've been affected as badly as some of the other large metropolitan areas, even near us. But it definitely has had an effect. What are you seeing from a commercial standpoint and how that's affected our area?
Oh gosh. It's an interesting situation that no one could have, dreamed, I guess I should say. I guess if we pay attention to history, we should have been able to know that it was coming, but I think we're all just kind of living our little bubble and moving on. I am sad for the human effect it's had. For Hickory and our MSA, our 370,000 people that live in the 4-county area, it has not been a bad thing for business. And when I say that very generically, what I mean is if you take the individual pain and suffering out of it, so take that out of it completely, a suburban secondary market is now what people want. Now, that doesn't mean, this isn't forever, it's temporary, but there are people that are looking at a change of lifestyle, and that has not been a bad thing. We're going to have Commercial First is on track to have the best year it's ever had in 20 years of being open. Same for 2021 through the second and into the third quarter, because a lot of our deals don't close until 6 and 9 months out. That is not a Commercial First thing. That I was in a meeting just the other day with Scott Millar and with the EDC, and he said this is like late 1990s busy as far as what Catawba County EDC is seeing and the movement and investment that's happening in our region. So I'm going to talk about the positive of that for just a minute, because I do think COVID, it's kind of like all the elements are coming together for it to be a good thing for Hickory. And COVID, unfortunately, has been a positive thing in that, from that. It's really hard to talk about this. and say positive.
No,
But
I mean,
if you
because
understand
I
what I'm
think
saying,
because we are looking at it from a business standpoint and not
right?
an overall business standpoint. I mean, there have been businesses that have been hit, like the restaurant people. I mean, I feel like
Yes,
awful. I mean, like if I have friends in that business, and it's just, what they're going
yes,
through is terrible. And so we don't want to minimize that. But, big picture stuff that I think if those folks can hang in there, it's going to be good for them soon or at some point when this passes. But there are trends that I think for the long-term viability of our area seem to be trending that way. And I don't mean to like jump in, but at the same time,
sure,
I just don't want it to seem like we're being calloused with it.
right,
And I know you like I'm being careful, you're being careful that way because like
yeah,
it is
yeah.
a really weird situation. But I also think we should talk about it.
And my family owns a restaurant. I mean, my dad is an owner, my brother's the manager. I mean, we're in it, the thick of it. So you're exactly right. That's why it's so weird for the businesses that have seen some uptick. But take COVID out of it, I think the bond referendum and people actually seeing the $100 million that's being infused into our economy with the city, with the Hickory Trail, with City Walk, River Walk, with Trivium Corporate Center, the private investment. I need to find out what they've tracked as far as what that number is of private investment that's been invested in our city up to date because of the bond referendum. Then you also have, election years are usually really touchy. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's pent up demand from the spring or if it's pre-election jitters or I don't know, but all of that, along with our low cost of living, our great location, it's just really put our MSA in a desirable place to be. So all I'm doing is looking at the silver lining. That's what I'm doing here. I'm looking at the silver lining. So, but what really has been sad for me is to see fitness places, restaurants, our mall. I mean, the malls right now, they're predicted to have 25% shrinkage. Be 25% less malls that are out there. I mean, Gap, for example, closed 220 stores, Banana Republic 130. Those two, if you look at those two together, it's 350. Gap, Banana, Athleta, Old Navy brand. Out of all that, that's 80% of their stores that were in enclosed malls. So people want to be outside. People want to have those lifestyle centers, and you're going to have to get creative. Now, our mall, fortunately, never had a mega growth pattern like you'd see in Charlotte and in Atlanta and some of the larger markets. So for them to go in and, like our Sears is closed, but for them to go in and revamp our mall is not going to be as monumental of a task as it would be if you were in a huge market. So back to what we were talking about, malls, restaurants, big box leasing. So when you think about any of these power centers, a lot of these guys have gone to percentage leases where they're not paying rent, they're only paying percentage of sales. Landlords can't make it that way. If they've got 70% of their center paying percentage rent, it just doesn't work. Some medical, there's been a ton of medical that's put on hold, so that's not been good. But then in other areas, there's some medical that's growing. Hotels. So Airbnb, not shared Airbnb rooms, but whole houses that you can rent, Airbnb, VRBO, they have seen success. Hotels have gone to the wayside. I mean, they're having to, even the ones that aren't down as much on vacancy, they're having to reduce rates to get them a little bit more full. So hopefully those are, it's a barrier of entry and it's survival, hopefully it'll get a little bit better. But I just don't know when. I don't know that anybody does.
Next section here. How's the overall commercial market doing so far this year? Do you have any stats to share or anything from that perspective?
Well, I don't, stat wise, if I look, I go to the Western Piedmont Council of Governments and really look at their statistics, and they always do such a good job over there. So that's a great place to go if you're looking for statistics about retail or traffic counts or anything. And they're a great source for that. Our overall market is just really, really healthy right now. The one thing that's kind of hanging out there that makes me cause for pause is forbearance payments. A lot of folks, a lot of commercial owners of properties were able to get forbearance payments back when the shutdown began in mid-March. And depending on when that happened, that's 6 months. A lot of those folks went to interest only. So now here they owe the same, they've paid interest only. Those are coming back around and starting to go back up to their full amount where they're not interest only now. So I think it gives people a false sense of security of having cash. That is going to start changing. Obviously if they look at their spreadsheets, they know it's changing, but it's still, they've got a little more money in their account than they expected. I do feel like it was needed. But now that this time is passing, going into November, December, January, I just don't know what it looks like January, February. Post-holiday spending, forbearance payments are behind. Do we get a second round of stimulus? I don't know. But again, what if we were in DC? I mean, right now they're looking at, I was talking to somebody the other day, an office building that's over 200,000 square feet, and there were 10 cars in the parking lot. 10 cars. I mean, we don't have that here. We don't know how lucky we are today to not have these huge markets of malls and hotels and huge office buildings that all of a sudden we're trying to figure out, where do we go? So that part to me is scary. The primary markets that just have they're not overbuilt, but for today they're overbuilt until the market corrects.
Yeah, it's kind of like you said, it's just kind of scary for other places, but I guess again, glad we're here, I guess, at this point, and hopefully this time next year, I mean, I hate to think that this is going to, keep dragging on, but I mean, you kind of think back to March when all this kind of happened, and kind of felt like, all right, well, in a couple of months we'll be back to normal again or whatever. And
right.
now I'm like,
I'm so glad they didn't say come Christmas you're still going to be shut down.
yeah, I mean, the reality of that really would have freaked us out, I guess. But now that we're here, and it's like, I'm hoping, maybe by next summer, maybe it's, kind of back to normal. I mean, like I'll be really happy if that's where we're at. But
my goal is Easter. I'm like, let's get past flu season, and what does life look like then?
Yeah. True. Well, we'll see. And hopefully flu season, with everybody taking the precautions that they're taking, for that, maybe that'll not be as bad this year. Maybe if there is a silver lining from that, but two non-doctors talking about disease, but hey. All right. So last time we talked a little bit, we touched on opportunity zones and kind of what they were. And so if anybody wants to learn about what an opportunity zone is, I mean, you can kind of give a quick review on it, but they seem to be getting talked about. It seemed like we were kind of in the beginning of that discussion, and there's been a lot more talk about it nationally. Are we seeing any movement there? Are they becoming more popular in our area? Is there demand for properties like that?
So in theory, they should be becoming less popular, because the longer you wait to invest in one, the shorter amount of time it has to increase in value.
Okay.
Because I believe it's 2027, don't quote me on that, but 2027 is when you have to hold the property to. So the goal is, if you buy an opportunity zone property, that stops, you don't pay taxes on the growth of the value. So if you buy it in 2019 versus 2021, that's an extra 2 years you would have had for it to appreciate in value, in theory. But it's taken us a long time to figure it out. I mean, you think about us, I think of us as a spoke on the wheel. I mean, with being a secondary market, I mean, folks in Charlotte and DC and Atlanta that have more financial focused centers, I mean, they had that access of, accountants and attorneys that got really up to speed on it and learned what they liked and what they didn't like about it. And it's taken us time to really soak it in and figure it out. But here's the thing. An opportunity zone in Hickory, North Carolina is the same as an opportunity zone in San Francisco or Queens, New York, or Napa Valley or West Palm Beach. So the whole point of an opportunity zone is you're betting on the come. How much is it going to grow? So do you put your money in Hickory, North Carolina, where our opportunity zone, unfortunately, isn't in a prime commercial area? Whereas, for example, Morganton, Taylorsville, they're two close by towns that they have their main commercial corridors and opportunities in. So when you look at it, how much growth is going to happen? I was reading an article the other day. It was like the top 10 things or the top 10 places that got put into an opportunity zone that really didn't make sense. It was like a yacht club in West Palm Beach. It was University of Southern California, I believe. It was, anyways, it was a really interesting article when you think about it. And so when you compare it that way, are we really going to have the same growth as like a Queens, New York? So that part from a REIT or from an investor standpoint, that's what they're looking at. From a local MSA standpoint, yes, there's an opportunity zone is a plus in the pro column. Is it a reason to go invest money? Just to invest money? No, not at all. I think the ones that make sense are the ones where you already have a tenant or you've already got a tenant paying rent, or you're going to be putting a business there that's going to grow and it could possibly sell. Those are the situations that make sense to invest in opportunity zone. But you don't want to do it just for the sake of it being an opportunity zone.
Good advice. Do you have any good opportunities out there for investment, maybe along the city walk or river walk? Like that's, and I'm not saying specific, but like what types of, like if somebody's looking to invest in commercial real estate, like kind of like where would you kind of point, what direction would you kind of point them in where they can see a really good return over the next few years?
We've been watching very carefully. I know every parcel between where the city walk starts and the river walk ends, from start to finish. So it right in front of Lenoir College, you've got a good little sector of commercial. There's JJ's Trophies. There's a building owned by the McNeely family. And you keep on coming down. Hometown Sports, which is on the market now. I think it's $465 is the price for it, for a almost 8,000 square foot building. It's got some neat character. But as you continue going down that and anything along on both sides of the track, any of those properties that are coming available are going to look very differently. So there's absolutely, I can't think of specific ones other than the one I just mentioned.
Sure.
And that's not even one that we handle. That's Gavin Mitchell has that listed. But I think that's Old Lenore Road, to me, is a great place for folks to pay attention to. But properties have gone up in value there already. They're starting to, and the owners know what they have.
No, that's good. But yeah, definitely, I think that's a definitely a good place to watch. And even just like I said earlier, watching the landscape of, what those areas look like now versus what they look like 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited to see what it's going to look like 4 or 5 years from now. So,
and can we talk about downtown for a minute?
Yes, please.
We went downtown a few weekends ago on a Friday night. And so a little bit about me, I've got 2 boys. My 16-year-old was obviously not with me. He was doing his own thing, but we had our 11-year-old. We met 2 couples. We sat outside, socially distanced, and the 3 kids rode on their scooters around, completely out of the way of the restaurant. Music was playing, and it was packed. And when I say packed, from a standpoint of, everything was spread out, but where you could sit, people were sitting. And it was just so nice. I hate it when people say you feel like you're not in Hickory, because I want people to say, we feel like we're in Hickory, and we love it. And it's great. It is Hickory. We're here. And it's just a fun time to live here and to see the development and the transformation, because I love what downtown has done. And with the city walk, with that being the first piece of it, it's just, it's been a really positive thing just for the lifestyle.
Yeah, we had some family come in and visit us for a couple of days, a couple weeks back, and we took them downtown. We actually parked at our office and walked to downtown.
Yes.
and had some lunch on the square there. And it just, like you said, it's just like, hey, this is what it was supposed to be. Like, kind of like it felt really good to be sitting there and like this, all this, the renderings and all the ideas and what this is going to look like, and people saying it's a waste of money and stuff. And like, we're sitting there and enjoying ourselves and having a conversation, and someone that's not from here is like, wow, this is a really cool place. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And finally is. So it's like I said, it's nice to see the fruits of that coming together finally.
When you asked me about good places to look for, I wanted to say your office, because right there where your office is and all around there, I mean, it's prime property, and you know that. So you did a
Yeah,
good job. You got in before all the development.
yeah. I was talking to somebody about the other day, and they said sometimes better to be lucky than good. Because none of this was in the works when we bought this building, and people thought we were kind of crazy. Like, why are you putting your office there? And I'm like, it seems like it'll work. And it's we were close to downtown, and geographically it's really convenient. So like all those reasons
Right.
why we put it here, but this is just kind of icing on the cake. So
So I should be asking you what's going to happen with our economy, what's coming next, instead of you asking me, because
I don't
you've
know.
done it already.
Yeah, we'll see. But all right, let's see here. So any other sectors of the market that people should be looking at for investment that might be slow now, but could provide its return later in a couple of years or so? Someone that wants to play the long game. What do you kind of see?
I see more so than sector. I see who's going to be paying rent. What's their business look like? Is it a spec project where you want to buy a building and renovate it and lease it? Is it a project where there's already a tenant there? And how good do you feel about their business? And how do you feel about them paying rent? I will say, from an investment standpoint, back in the early 2000s, there were a lot of people that liked to buy land and just hold it because they wanted to see it grow. I've seen a lot less of that over the years, more from a standpoint of investors are spending money with existing buildings. And because it's a seller's market, they're hard to find. So I say it's tenant specific. And if you're going to do a spec project where maybe you're wanting to bring that, let's say it's the Piedmont Wagon. Everybody saw what happened with the Piedmont Wagon building. Well, it made sense for them. They had their own business going in there. But let's say they were doing that as a speculative project. Well, that's a great project and such a historic monument for the city, but how long is it going to take you to lease it to the right tenant? What does that look like? The other thing is, a lot of times, and this is very common, and the smartest thing to do is to leave the building completely open with the four walls and the plumbing and the floor, and then the person can come in and they can renovate it themselves. The problem with that is it probably takes us 2 to 3 times on market to fill that space up. Maybe we're not good enough salespeople, but people think about it and plan. Either one, they don't have the time to plan. Oh gosh, now it's going to take me 120 days because I got to plan it, and I got to pull the permits, I got to do the construction, I have to lay it out and actually move in, and they may have to be in 60 days. Or it may be, it's just too overwhelming. It's too much. They just want to do what they do on a daily basis. So I have a lot of those uncomfortable conversations with my sellers these days, landlords these days, because if you're going to buy something, it's almost better to just say, what do I think this looks like? And go ahead and build it out, unless you've got enough time built into your pro forma that you can wait on that tenant to come build their own space.
That's good. Circling back to something that you said earlier, kind of in the very beginning, you said that pretty much everything seems to be moving pretty well, with the exception of land. And I even see that from a residential standpoint, where, and maybe we could kind of talk about the residential part of it after a little bit, but what do you think is going to be the difference where land starts to move? Because that's kind of been something that I've just found really weird, because where we're positioned, you'd think people would want to invest in the raw land, and just, it seems like that just has been super slow across the board, commercial, residential, everywhere. There's stuff moving, don't get me wrong, but it's not going as quickly as anything that's already been constructed, it seems. What do you think the tipping point will be where that goes forward?
I continue to feel like we're already there, but I'm not seeing it. And the reason being is the value of an existing building versus the value of a new build, that gap has got to get closer. On the retail side, a lot of retailers, and when I say retail, I mean, food, C-stores, drug stores, et cetera. I mean, they're going to just tear something down and build. So that if you take that out of it, land is just a little harder to move. And I do feel like it's going to be the construction costs that change. I'm sorry, that's not true. The inventory pricing is going to have to increase to get closer to where construction costs are. But because construction costs have been going up lately, that gap just keeps going up. So I don't know where that tipping point is. We've said amongst my colleagues at Acres and Prism and Boyd and Hassel and Weichert, I mean, we've all said, we're here. Why is it not happening? So I don't really know, but it is time. If you build it, they will come. And I'm telling you, Trivium Corporate Center is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, no, it's filling up, and it's exciting what's going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so kind of wrapping up the technical part of our thing. The last couple of questions I have are usually kind of like a little bit more personal. I used to do like a top 10. I used to do a top 10 list, and it was like kind of like a game show, but we've kind of flipped it a little bit. Now it's more kind of what people have been doing since
I got to
COVID.
get ready. Oh.
So it's a lot more relaxed and a lot fewer questions. So anyway, so what has been your favorite takeout place since March?
Oh, Hickory Smokehouse. But
Okay.
I'm partial. It's my parents and my brother's business. So
Nice.
that, and I will say now that the temperature's somewhat changed a little bit, chili from Wendy's is a good option too.
Okay. Nice. That works. Yeah, we're a big fan of Rancho Viejo over there on LR Boulevard, and we go there quite a bit. When I'm at the office, for lunch every once in a while, maybe once a week or once every other week, we'll get from there. But at home, we're closer to Mexico Viejo, which apparently it's the same company, but they just have different, and it's the same food. So, and it's only a couple minutes from our house. So we've been hitting that for home.
Yes, absolutely.
Both are good options. Have you been, everybody kind of talks about the series that they've watched on TV and binge watched or whatever. Have you binge watched any good series lately?
Oh, I'm a total girl when it comes to that. The Home Edit, the organizing show it's funny because when we first were at home, I tore out everything every closet I've ever wanted to touch, we did. And now 6 months later, I'm doing it again because I've watched the Home Edit and I want to get everything pretty. The other one I love that's just come on, it was only 6 episodes, but it's the Studio McGee people. I think it's called like Dream Home Makeover, something like that. It's been a fun one to watch. So, it's a little bit, it's pretty impressive what they can do. Pretty impressive.
Is that one on Netflix?
That one's on Netflix.
Okay.
And I would think definitely one that you guys should watch because it's they do high dollar makeovers, but in general, just the transformation is always really big.
Okay. I will definitely check that one out. One that I tried to watch, Selling Sunset, and that was just a little that was really hard to watch.
I got like 2 episodes in. What was it? There was a record scratch in there, but I don't really know why.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because we're in the business, I don't know, but it just seemed too staged. And I love like $1 million listing, like every one of those that they've done, I've loved. And so even though, some of it you can tell is staged or whatever, but that show I just felt was just so staged that I just couldn't handle watching it. And there's podcasts that I listen to that they reference that, and I just can't.
Yeah.
I just can't.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't able to get into that one either. That's interesting.
That's pretty good. One that we just started watching, every time I hit pause on DirecTV, there's a spot for the Spanish Princess. And so we actually started watching that. We saw the first 2 episodes of that, and it's really good. So it's kind of like.
So recommend that?
Game of Thrones without the dragons.
Okay.
So that's kind of been the vibe so far. But
yes.
Anyway, so it's just I'll have to let you know how that goes. But that's been
Please
better than I expected. All right. So, and the last thing, what are you looking forward to the most when we get back to normal? I put that in air quotes for the people that aren't watching the video component.
I know, right? I think sports in person. That's been harder for me than I ever care to admit. Watching, the World Series with, hardly anybody in the stands, and then and what, just having athletics around here. I mean, and I know there's some people that are playing and travel sports and things of that nature, but outside of tennis and golf, they're just, it's limited. So I'm really looking forward to that. We all love to play any kind. We're very competitive in my family, so we all love a good competition. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I definitely, we go to a lot of Hornets games, and that we've definitely been missing that. And I think
Yeah,
it kind of hit home the most that then we were watching the game at home, when the day that they shut the NBA down, basically, and the Hornets actually had a really good
okay,
win that night. And it was against the Heat, who ended up making it to the conference finals. And it's like, man, this team really, like, this young team seems to be really on their way to something, like maybe they're going to show something by the end of the year. And it just, everything seemed to be
yeah,
coming together. And then that night it was like, yeah, we like won this game, and we don't know when the season's come back. And it kind of never did for the
right,
Hornets. So it was kind of sad, but
right. It's really sad, but I
yeah.
mean, in perspective, it's sad. In perspective,
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that we want everybody to be safe, and we hopefully this,
right.
like I said, we get on the other side of this. Hopefully, the people aren't rushing the vaccine too much, and it actually works when that goes into into production, and we can keep the people that are the most vulnerable safe. And
It's interesting though, when we talk about what we're having to do now, if you haven't been affected by it, like if you haven't gotten COVID or had it, our generation and what we're having to deal with from a standpoint of, wearing masks and staying home, and that in perspective with having our children drafted to go to war. I was telling my children about that again, they're 16 and 11, and it happened, in my dad's generation when he was a teenager, and he happened to be the lucky one. He had a friend that drew, like, I don't know, top 10, something crazy, that had a back issue. But like, I now have a child that's close to that age. And so when you look at what generations have been through over the years, I'll wear my mask gladly, and I'll deal with it and keep going.
yeah, it's definitely better than going to war, or
Yep.
having to put our lives at risk in a different way. So
Right. Exactly.
definitely a good point. All right. So something that I'm stealing this kind of from another podcast I listened to, but I think it's a good one, and I think because it's a real estate podcast, even though we've been talking about real estate, I like to wrap with a question. Ask, do you have any questions for me, or do you have a question for me? Just since I'm in this position
Yes,
too,
I
and
do.
from a different perspective.
I'm glad you threw that out there, because all I keep hearing is there is no inventory in the single home market. It's just people are getting in bidding wars and losing houses the first day they go on the market. And so I guess my question is, one, what are you going to do about it? Two, how are you handling it? Because I know we're dealing with building wars on our side, but I'm sure it's different when it's for a family's home.
Yeah, it's really been tricky, and I think we're kind of seeing a little bit in the price, prices increasing. But you kind of talked a little bit before about the delta between the cost of building versus the cost of existing, and we're
Mm-hmm.
still at a point where the cost of existing is a lot lower than the cost to build, because the building prices keep going up. And so I think it's going to be really difficult until we get to the point where the cost of building and the cost of something that exists is closer. I think we're going to be stuck in this weird vortex. My hope is that maybe over time, I think one fix might be, at least for areas like ours, even the cost of developing the land. Like, so let's say somebody wanted to just build a subdivision or whatever, and that sounds great, but they've got to buy the land. They've got to, have engineers look at it, running, stormwater runoff and that sort of thing. They have to put in infrastructure for electricity and gas and electric and sewer and all that kind of stuff. And by the time you get to that, the cost of the lot that you've, maybe might have been a good deal when you bought all that land, the cost of each lot is so expensive that, you need to put a $400,000 or $500,000 house on that lot just to make it worth it for someone to buy the lot.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's just so much that goes into that. So, I mean, maybe, we have to fall back on it. I'm not necessarily a big government person, but maybe there's little things that our governments can do to maybe help subsidize that cost of infrastructure development, kind of like what they did for Trivium and, building the park and, setting it up and getting the infrastructure done so that it can turn into something really big. Maybe we can do that more on a smaller scale for housing, where maybe like there's some places where, hey, we agree we're going to, maybe builders agree they're going to build houses under a certain dollar amount, but then, the cities or, the state or some other body helps with the cost of the infrastructure part to make it worth it to develop these communities. Cause I think that's
a really
really,
good point.
the biggest hurdle we have. I mean, there's some lots that are left from, maybe some subdivisions that they thought were going to build out in the early 2000s, and it never really happened. And, I've got some, plenty of lots for sale individually, but a lot of times people don't want to do 1, 2 here and there or whatever. They, when we talk about something that's really going to have an impact, it's going to be someone that comes in and does, 200 houses or, and that can really help close up the gap. And, unfortunately, we just haven't had anybody that's been willing to make that investment. But I think once we get some people that make that investment, then I think maybe we can get to the point where that'll maybe start helping us with the amount of inventory we have.
Do you have any idea where we could find a tract of land that big? I mean, for 200 houses, I was trying to think as you were talking, where would that be? Where do you see that going?
I mean, in Hickory proper, probably not. There's probably not a lot of space, but in our region, I think that Startown area, there's still a lot of land out there. The Mountain View area, that pocket, there's still a lot of developable land. And then I think, at a certain point, maybe even like where we get to a point where, we haven't gotten to this point yet, but they are in Charlotte, where, you have houses in, areas that are close to downtown where they, maybe they knock down some houses and buy some houses, fix them up, or knock them down and build new there. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but it's probably coming. But again, I think the cost of building in our area still doesn't balance out quite enough with the reward of being able to do that. But yeah, I mean, tracts of land, I think that maybe even more the Burke County and the Caldwell County side of things, I think there's still some room there. Like you said, in Hickory proper, we've probably used up a lot, for really big development projects, we've probably used up most of the land.
I would agree with that too.
So anyway, all right. Well, I think that's it for our show. I think we covered a lot of ground, and I think this might be one of the longer ones we've done. So I apologize if I think it's good, because I think we had a lot of really good information, and that's, why it kind of went on, the way that it did. But I think it was really helpful. And I think that anybody that listens to it, I think is going to be a little bit smarter because they listened to you today. So,
I don't know. I get long-winded, so you just have to.
But I really appreciate you being on today, and look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Thank you so much, Mike. Me too.
Right. Thanks.
See ya.